often than not, as teachers, we spend a lot of time in planning and teaching the content in the class. But has the lesson impacted? Has the lesson reached every child in the class? It can happen that though the elements of rigor and relevance are incorporated well in the plan, but during the actual execution of the session, the explicit articulation might get missed. So who would be the ally of the teacher? Almost like the conscience during conducting the session. We would suggest, make the board your best friend. Before every class, a teacher should mindfully plan her session to reflect relevance, rigor, and relationship. When we say relevance, it allows or gives an opportunity to the student to understand why we are learning, what we are learning. And when we say relationships, it not only allows the students to collaborate, but also to celebrate each other's presence in the class. And when we say rigor, it means the in-depth learning of the content in the class. It's always a good idea to discuss the intentionality of the plan with a mentor. Typically, when the teacher is teaching in the class, her plan always stays in front of her. Divide the board in such a way that the 3 R's that we talk about are visible in the same space to the children, and the impact of the lesson is much stronger. On the left side of the board, we have the topic area laid down where we write the content which is to be taught in the class. Then relevance, where the teacher articulates or translates why we are learning, what we are learning. For example, when I was teaching immunity, the moment I mentioned the relevance, what I saw was immediately the lesson reached out to the students rather than just being a topic. That's great. Understanding the architecture or the amazing design which helps us protect ourselves. Will that be fine for everybody?
Yes.
Then we have a space for the guided inquiry on the board, which allows for a run through of steps of the content to be delivered in the class.
Is anything that you find confusing, you underline it, right? Anything that you might find interesting.
For example, when I was teaching the same topic of immunity, I used the space to map the work they had done at home with the content they're going to learn today as a reconnect. Languages of learning is a tool which helps translate the content in the most interesting and interactive manner. For example, in my last session where I used cartoon pictures, the moment I wrote picture decoding on the board, I could see anticipation in the children looking forward to the session. Words help us express our understanding of the content, and so we have a separate column on the right side of the board which allows us to list the vocabularies or the technical terms. This helps the students familiarize with these new terms and also organize their notes in a much effective manner. Another key component of the board protocol is the relationship. For this, a separate space with a smiley is laid down, which helps the teacher acknowledge students who've added surplus to the class.
Who is coming in our smiley today? Why? Why do we say whole group?
Everybody participate and get.
Surplus would mean when a learner adds value to the session, either by sharing an important piece of information, adding to the discussion, asking a valuable question, or even merely listening to a peer's perspective. To make sure that the students don't forget their homework, there's a separate section for this on the board called the BA or the bridge assignment. These different sections made on the board allow for the students to consolidate their learning at the end of the session. Often, just by reviewing the content on the board, both the teachers and students can close the loop and make the key learnings visible.
What do you understand after this whole session?
Illustration helps.
Thank you.
Illustration helps us to understand the particular subject.
Illustration.
Before the teacher leaves the classroom, she always clicks the picture of the board for taking accountability of what was actioned and intentioned. The picture becomes a visual evidence to the practice, which allows the teacher not only to reflect on her practice but also to share it with the school leaders and her colleagues.
Then I did a demo of one situation on the board. So I used the strategy of illustration, which helped them to visualize the particular situation.
Workshop. So that's a brilliant idea. I think it's showing illustration and also giving a demonstration. I would definitely like to know this.
Board protocol helps the teacher to see whether the objective of the session has been achieved. It also helps the teacher to see whether his or her sessions are progressing. So it becomes a great tool for the teachers to reflect on their own pedagogy.
Look up to the board as a compass to give you direction and keep your session aligned to the objective that you've put in the planning. In case your session gets sidetracked, use the board to bring back the lesson into focus.